Okay, let's dive into this. When we talk about ancient historical cities, it's so easy to just picture dusty museum exhibits, right? Or ruins cordoned off behind velvet ropes. But the source material we're unpacking today paints a completely different picture. We're looking at Quanzhou, a coastal city in China's Fujian province. This isn't some dry, static historical site. No way. It is a living, breathing, 1,000-year-old marvel where the ancient past and the vibrant present are completely intertwined. To really get this city, we have to look at this beautiful local proverb, half city fireworks, half city immortals. As our sources highlight, this single phrase just perfectly captures the essence, the dual soul of Quanzhou. The immortals, well, they represent the divine, that deeply rooted spiritual history and the towering ancient architecture. The fireworks, on the other hand, represent the earthly, the sizzling street food, the bustling daily life filling up those narrow alleyways. In this explainer, we're going to trace that fascinating journey from the divine history of the immortals right on down to the earthly fireworks of its street culture. Part 1. Maritime Silk Road Capital. Let's move to and see how this builds. During the Song and Yuan dynasties, Quanzhou didn't just become a global hub overnight. It was recognized as the absolute largest port in the east. Marco Polo even knew it as Zaitun. Its connection to the ocean drove centuries of explosive growth. By the 10th century, it was already emerging as a major trading port. Then, by 1087, the Song dynasty established the Shibo Sea, which was essentially a maritime customs office, signaling a massive boom in international trade. And by the 13th century, Quanzhou hit its global peak, trading with nearly 100 different countries and regions. That is wild. This incredible legacy is exactly why, in 2021, the city achieved UNESCO World Heritage status as the Emporium of the World in Songyan, China. Part 2. The City of Gods. You see, the ocean brought much more than just merchants, spices, and silk to Quanzhou. It brought a massive influx of global religions that entirely transformed the city's identity. And the scale of this religious integration, it's staggering. Quanzhou is incredibly unique in how it seamlessly and impartially integrates so many different faiths, earning it the title of the World Religion Museum. Within the city, there are over 6,000 temples and shrines dedicated to more than 500 different deities. You have the peaceful physical coexistence of Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, and Christianity all sharing the exact same city grid. A perfect example of this is the Qingjing Mosque. Built over 1,000 years ago by Arab merchants, it actually still stands today as the oldest surviving Islamic mosque in China. Part 3. Architectural Marvels in Stone. So, transitioning from the spiritual concepts to the physical reality, the sheer permanence of Quanzhou's stone environment is a real testament to its wealthy global past. And it makes you wonder, why on earth is a Hindu deity carved into an 800-year-old Chinese Buddhist pagoda? It sounds like a riddle, right? But it's an actual physical feature you can go touch today at Quanzhou's ancient Kaiyuan Temple, and it perfectly sets up the incredible cultural cross-pollination that defined the city. The answer lies in the majestic east and west pagodas of Kaiyuan Temple. Now, these are 800-year-old masterpieces. They were originally built of wood, but were later reconstructed using massive blocks of cool, hard granite. And what's really amazing is that the stonemasons meticulously carved this super tough granite to perfectly mimic the intricate interlocking wooden brackets of traditional Chinese architecture. This made them incredibly earthquake-resistant. But back to our Hindu deity. During the Song and Yuan dynasties, foreign merchants from India brought their beliefs with them. They were actually involved in the temple's renovations, which is why on the fourth tier of the Zenhaku Pagoda, you'll find a carving of the Hindu monkey god Hanuman, who, by the way, looks remarkably similar to the famous Chinese mythological figure Sun Wukong. Talk about worlds colliding. This monumental stone engineering wasn't just reserved for temples, though. Look back to the year 1059. So the crucial point is, that is when the Luoyang Bridge was built. And this isn't just any bridge. It represents China's very first cross-sea beam-type stone bridge. Driven by the immense, everyday needs of maritime trade, local officials and engineers built this massive structure out of huge granite slabs, spanning right over the tidal estuary. It drastically cut down the travel time for goods moving in and out of the Great Port, serving as a vital artery for the maritime Silk Road. Part 4. The Zanhua Tradition. Moving away from the ancient, immovable stone architecture for a second, let's look at the living people of Quanzhou, specifically focusing on the coastal Sunpu village. Zanhua is this visually stunning, vibrant floral headwear traditionally worn by the women here. Historically, while the men went out to brave the really dangerous ocean, the women would wear these beautiful floral crowns to pray for their safe return and for good fortune. Today, It has absolutely exploded into a wildly popular cultural symbol, with people traveling from all over just to experience wearing this living artifact of Quanzhou's deep connection to the sea. Another incredible feature of this village is the okachu, or oyster shell houses. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that these aren't built with your standard everyday local oysters. When the massive ancient merchant ships sailed back to Quanzhou from places as far away as Africa, they were often empty of cargo. So to keep the ships stable in the rough seas, they used giant African oyster shells as ballast. Once they finally arrived in Quanzhou, the shells were just dumped on the shore. Well, the ingenious local Xinpu villagers simply gathered them up and used them to build the incredibly durable, insulated walls of their homes. How cool is that? This brings us to a fantastic thematic pivot in our sources. Let's look at this comparison. The immortals versus the fireworks. We've just spent our time exploring the immortals. You know, the silent, towering 800-year-old stone permanents of the Kaiyuan pagodas, the ancient mosques, and those heavy oyster shell homes. But right at the base of those immortal structures is the other half of the city's soul, the fireworks. This is the bustling, sizzling, mouth-watering daily energy, especially found along the famous West Street. Part 5, Half-City Fireworks. Our sources dive deep into Quanzhou's sensory-rich food scene, a culinary culture that literally wakes up the ancient city every single day. Take the Minnan herbal beef hot pot, for example. You've got freshly sliced, tender beef and incredibly chewy, gelatinous tendons boiling away in a rich broth stewed with traditional Chinese herbs like angelica. But here is the really fascinating historical twist. Traditionally, locals used cows strictly for farming. It was actually the Arab and Persian Islamic merchants who settled here during the Song and Yuan dynasties who introduced their methods of processing and eating beef. Over time, locals adapted it by adding their own medicinal herbs to combat the hot, humid coastal weather. It is, quite literally, maritime history in a bowl. Let's break down 2 more signature dishes. First up, mian xianhu. The key ingredients here are a deeply savory pork bone or seafood broth, incredibly fine, silky broken noodles, and toppings like crispy vinegar pork. The flavor profile, it's silky, savory, and incredibly comforting, often eaten as a warm breakfast right by the ocean. Then we have ginger mother duck. This one requires a specific muscovy duck, huge amounts of old ginger, sesame oil, and Chinese herbs. The duck is pan-fried and then braised in clay pots right out on the street. The flavor profile is incredibly rich, herbal, aromatic, and just completely fall off the bone tender. It's an absolute explosion of the senses. Part 6, a living 1,000-year legacy. Our sources make it very clear that Quanzhou isn't a place where you just look at the past. It's a place where you actively participate in it. History isn't just locked away in museums. It's something you wear on your head like the Zanmoir flowers. It's something you eat in a steaming bowl of herbal beef soup. And it's something you walk on every single day across an 800-year-old stone bridge. The immortals and the fireworks are one and the same. And this brilliantly illustrates our final thought based on everything we've explored today. When you imagine stepping into this 1,000-year-old living ancient city, what part of history will you taste first?